Silence in the Abyss by Elton Gar. Captain Solaria sat alone on the bridge of the Silent Echo. The view screen had gone dark, as had most of the control panels. That didn't really matter, because she had ordered the evacuation of the crew almost a full minute ago.
Computer, turn off the alarm on the bridge. It's already empty,
Cassandra said. At the same time, she tried to get the ship to turn. It didn't have any shields left, and the hull had buckled in several places, but every second let a few more people get to the escape pods. The alarm blared twice more on the bridge before it died away. Even the computer was working slow. Likely one or two of the cores had been destroyed, and the only reason it was working at all were the many redundancies. While she was thinking about that, another thought occurred to her. Why hadn't they been hit again? The ambush had been masterful. It had happened on third shift when most of the command crew was asleep, and the ship had been disabled before anyone could even raise shields. Cassandra had barely reached the bridge in time to order the evacuation, and the blows to the ship had been fast and regular, each one striking the most important systems. And now that they were disabled, and the only thing holding the ship together was hope and luck, they had stopped firing. There was no time to wonder about that. If the enemy was going to give them a break, she would take it, so she said.
Computer, how many crew are on the ship?
The doctor and several injured have not yet reached their escape pod. Would you like me to tell them to hold?
No. They'll have a better chance in the lifeboats. Can you begin to diagnose the ship's systems and determine which, if any, can be brought back online?
I can, but I am currently at 17% efficiency and do not have access to anything on the port side of the ship.
Assuming we have a port side, it will have to take care of itself for now. Just find me something I can repair,
the captain said, and she went over to the small backup life support system for the bridge. With main life support off, she turned it on and felt a small breeze of warm air come out from the oxygen recyclers. It wouldn't help if they shot at the Echo again, but if they planned to take the ship, she wanted to be conscious to fight them. As she understood, that might be what was happening, she said.
As soon as everyone else is off the ship, I want a full security lockdown. I don't want a door to open without a command-level access code. And activate all internal security.
There was a buzzing sound. That was something that the AI almost never did. It then said,
I am unable to lock down anything on the port side of the ship, and there are systems I don't have access to.
The captain opened one of the storage areas under the security access panel, and was unsurprised to see that the security chief had an evac suit and a gun hidden there. The suit was fit for the lieutenant and 2 sizes too big for her, but she pulled it on anyway. Once the helmet was on, she said,
Computer lock all ship and computer access to my voice. Command code Alpha Gamma Z14.
This time there was a chirp, and the voice of the AI came through the suit and said,
Of course, but I will remind you.
I know. You can't do anything on the port side of the ship. I'm on my way there now. Perhaps we'll be lucky, and the only thing wrong is that one of the wires is loose.
2 of my 6 cores are on the port side of the ship. I assure you, it is not simply a loose wire.
She knew that was true. It was beyond unlucky that one entire side of the ship had been disconnected. And combining the unlikelihood of that with the knowledge their attackers had of the ship led her to something she didn't currently have time to think about.
Shouldn't you be conserving computing power by not contradicting me?
The captain said, trusting the AI to understand her point even if she didn't make it directly.
I assure you that conversing with the crew requires only minimal attention, but reconnecting me with that half of the ship would potentially aid significantly in any diagnostic and repair duties you desire of me.
The captain didn't respond to that. She liked the Echo, and in most ways that mattered. The AI was the ship. That meant its day had been just about as bad as hers, and if it could feel pain, it would likely be far worse. But it did have enough intelligence to feel loss, and that might be as bad. She picked up the gun. It felt heavy in her hand. Security Chief Mansfield was probably the only one on the ship who would have a real gun, but then he was also the one trained well enough to entirely overcome the issues of using a gun inside a cramped metal box. As she made her way towards the port side of the ship, she saw far more damage. She had assumed that the port side was just cut off from the rest of the ship. Now she wondered if it was there. She almost hoped it wasn't, since that would counter the belief that one of her high-ranking crew had betrayed them. If there had been anyone else on the ship, she wouldn't have opened the thick metal bulkhead door that led into the port side of the ship for fear it would vent too much atmosphere. But with the ship empty, she simply attached one of the tethers to avoid being blown out into space and went to work. The door didn't open on its own or even after she put in her security code, so she had to open the panel next to the door and reach inside to pull the emergency release. On most doors, that took about a minute. On the main bulkhead doors, it took twice that long as she had to release both sides. And by the time she was done, she was entirely convinced that the mystery ship that had ambushed them had decided not to destroy the Silent Echo. She'd like to have believed that was a good thing, but there was one obvious reason not to destroy the ship. They wanted something on the Silent Echo, or possibly the ship itself. As the door inched open, she looked through the doorway to see the chaos she expected. There was twisted metal and wires everywhere, but it was a warship. One designed to survive even if there was almost nothing left, so she pulled it open just far enough for the helmet of her suit to fit through. Since that was as thick as anything else and less flexible, it was easy enough to get through once she disconnected the tether, though she did end up on the floor. That turned out to be a good thing as 3 people in bulky spacesuits went by. One of them glanced in her direction, and almost certainly would have seen her if she was standing. But lying down, she was just another dead body. It was impossible to tell if they were even human inside those suits. The design was unfamiliar, so she knew they weren't part of the crew. Or at least the spacesuit wasn't. The smart thing to do would be to let them take what they wanted, and report it to her superiors. The only thing of real value on the ship would be the device which no one who knew about would take and access codes, and other data. Those would be useless as soon as they were reported stolen. But this was her ship, damn it, and these people had attacked it and killed members of her crew. They weren't going to get away with that. She moved slowly. There were no active sensors in this half of the ship, so she couldn't know if there were any more people. As she moved through the ship, she looked for a weapon that wouldn't alert everyone on the ship she was here the first time she used it. There were plenty of pipes, and she picked up one that had a jagged piece of metal on the end. She stuck the gun into her belt and moved slowly. The only real advantage she had over the 3 men was that she knew the Silent Echo better than anyone, and unless they planned to go through the sock drawer of crew members looking for credits, there weren't many places they could be going. She followed them to the port computer room. As the men forced the door open, she felt the rush of wind escaping through what must be a large hole in the hull. She waited just outside the door, trusting that without atmosphere no one was going to hear her. She also couldn't hear them, so had no idea what they were doing. But she saw the first of the men coming out of the room before he saw her. The pipe hit him in the head. The thick glass of the helmet he was wearing cracked. The man grabbed his face, trying to cover up the hole to protect himself from the lack of atmosphere with one hand while reaching for a small repair kit on his belt. One of his friends shoved him forward in an attempt to get to Cassandra. As he did, she saw the face. No one she recognized, but it was human. That might be good. Humans didn't need any external enemies. They were far too good at fighting among themselves. Without the thick suits, the second man might have made it through quickly enough, but with the suits, there wasn't room, so only his arm made it through. She swung the pipe upward, hitting the arm near where the elbow probably was. With the thick plastic of the spacesuit's arm, it was hard to tell if it worked. The captain was still outnumbered, so she couldn't afford to slow, as the man with the broken helmet that was blocking the doorway began to stagger forward, so she raised the pipe once more, hitting the bottom of his elbow on the hand that was holding the helmet shut. She saw the steam and air escaping from the helmet as she moved backwards as quickly as she safely could. She threw the pipe at the floor in front of them and drew the gun that she now knew was far more safe to use. After all, if there was no oxygen, then there would be no sound from it. There was also a chance that it wouldn't work, but she knew the chief too well to be surprised when she felt the recoil. The lack of sound was disturbing as blood erupted from the man in front of her. The fight was effectively over at that point. The first man collapsed and the second moved out, holding his arm. The anger on his face was replaced by terror as he saw the gun. At this range, he didn't suffer. She waited several more seconds for the third man to come out. When he didn't, she began to move. As she did, she saw that there was a hole in the side of the computer room and a man disappeared out of it. As he did, he looked back and she saw the weathered face of Lawrence Mansfield, her first officer. Well, at least she knew who the traitor was. She saw the hole where the computer core should have been, and for a moment she tried to convince herself of the logic of the situation. The Silent Echo's computer cores were state-of-the-art military hardware. But even then, this was irrational. All 6 cores wouldn't have been enough to pay for the ammunition that it took to disable the Silent Echo, let alone the repairs, and Lawrence would know that. He was also gone and might be looking to remove any witnesses, so there wasn't any time to be angry. So Cassandra said,
Have you got any news for me?
The ship's AI said,
I have rerouted energy from several systems that are in disrepair into structural integrity, and there are repair bots making repairs.
The bots, while vital to the operation of the ship, weren't designed to repair anything like the damage the Silent Echo had taken. But given enough time, they would at least make sure that the less damaged systems were working.
Is there anyone else on the ship?
Senses are limited, but there are no other biological entities on the ship's senses.
That didn't mean much, but Cassandra didn't have time to worry about it. If the people who had attacked them were after something, it seemed likely they had gotten it, and she wasn't certain if they'd keep the ship around.
Computer, is it possible to make a jump?
There were several seconds of silence that were uncharacteristic for the ship, and then it said,
Jump drive is intact, but the odds of the ship surviving are small, and I don't have any way to calculate the jump. The ending point would be random.
Cassandra considered that. At least the pirates wouldn't get to brag that they had destroyed one of the human stealth ships. Then she said,
Do everything you can to prepare the ship, and then jump in 1 minute.
She was moving as she spoke. She wouldn't make it to the bridge in 1 minute, but she was able to make it through the door at the bulkhead. Once in the marginally more secure part of the ship, she connected the tethers from her suit to the loops along the ship's walls. She had only gotten the upper 2 of them secured when the jump happened. There was still no sound, but she could feel the ship trying to rip itself apart. Jumping the ship wasn't easy on a good day, and today wasn't a good day. She watched as a large piece of the ship tore off, and looking through the hole into space, she felt her mind begin to twist. Looking into the maelstrom of a jump had driven people insane, but those people hadn't been traveling through space for 20 years. As it began to return to normal, Cassandra saw the stars shift, and she allowed the tethers to hold her for a few seconds as she nearly collapsed. About a minute later, she decided that the ship wasn't going to finish falling apart, so she began to make her way to the bridge. As she tried to find a hallway that was intact enough to take her to the bridge, she said,
Computer, are you still there?
I am. Mostly intact.
The computer said, pausing as if it was thinking about it.
Put us into stealth mode, at least as much as you can. I don't want to risk anyone finding us.
Most of the systems are already powered down.
The AI said,
Just keep us out of sight and no active sensors. Also, is the ship going to keep together?
What is intact should remain intact so long as we don't try to jump again. Luckily, that would be impossible. The jump drained all backup batteries, and the only power we have is from a single granite unit and 1 remaining solar panel.
The odds of them being near enough a solar system for a solar panel to do anything was tiny, and the granite units weren't meant to power the ship. It wouldn't even be able to keep all of the repair bots working.
Can you confirm that we're not in immediate danger?
The captain said.
Without active senses, all I can say is that there are no signals, and no one is currently shooting at us.
The AI said. Captain Solaria said,
Just focus on repairing the ship. I'm going to conserve energy for a few hours. It's been a long day.
She then walked into the ready room attached to the bridge, laid down on the couch, and fell asleep. To be continued.
Author's note. I hope everyone enjoyed the introduction to this world. The ability to explore a new universe is one of the things I most love about science fiction, and I think this is going to be a fun place to spend some time. I decided to focus on the captain for this episode because in short stories it's difficult to really explore more than one character at a time, and like in most space operas, the captain is in many ways the main character. That doesn't mean that there won't be more characters, and I hinted at a few. The security chief seems an interesting sort to me, and I have plans for the first officer. But being alone in space, the previous crew of her ship may not be the first people she encounters. I hope you're all looking forward to the next story as much as I am. If you want to get more installments, as well as other free stories and updates, you can join my newsletter. Just go to www.anscifi.com and follow the link that says free book. And if you want to get access to all of my stories, including patron exclusives, you can visit www.patreon.com/Elton. Thank you, Elton Gar.